Can't type. Okay, let's try this up. 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 What? Okay, let's try this up. What's going on? What? Okay, let's try this up. What's going on? What? Ah, fuck. What's going on? What? It entered a fucking loop. Ah, fuck. What's going on? What? It entered a fucking loop. Ah, fuck. What's going on? What? It entered a fucking loop. I'm hearing myself. Fuck. What's going on? What? La da la da la da la da la da da da. Going small bet here. It's got like 7s, 8s, 9s. Okay. It worked.
Não vai errar, não. E se a gente errar? A gente foi feliz tentando acertar. Deixa tudo como tá. É que não sobrou espaço pra outro alguém. Minha saudade só cabe no teu abraço. No de mais ninguém. Tenho dó de quem me conhecer agora. Que todo amor eu tô jogando fora. E qualquer um que bate aqui nesse meu coração não passa nem da porta. Se essa boca não beijasse tão bem, se eu quero outro alguém. Nem de graça, nem de graça. Se essa boca não beijasse tão bem, se esse abraço não fosse tão massa. Se quer saber se eu quero outro alguém. Nem de graça, nem de graça. Se essa boca não beijasse tão bem, se esse abraço não fosse tão massa. Se quer saber se eu quero outro alguém. Se quer saber se quero outro alguém. Nem de graça. Se essa boca não beijasse tão bem, se esse abraço não fosse tão massa. Se quer saber se eu quero outro alguém. Nem de graça, nem de graça. Leva a mão não. Só tem espaço pra você no coração.
The guy starts potting our first hand here on the stream. Let's call, right? Let's call. All right, my friends, welcome. Welcome to the first stream of the Poker Made Simple community. Really happy to be doing this. Please let me know if the audio is fine, like my microphone, the background music. I did some tests, but I'm not sure if it's good enough. Cláudio Gordão já meteu ali, Gordon, baita trilha sonora. Aqui é isso, né? Pagodinho regula demais. Simbora. Stream is gonna be very chill, guy. I haven't done this in a long time, so I'm definitely gonna be making mistakes. I'm gonna be talking about a hand and then showing the other table. So I asked for a little bit of patience because I haven't been grinding the stream game a long time. And it's difficult to think about the hands and then talk to the chat, but I'll do my best here. I'll surely do my best. So I'm playing 2 tables of 50 NL Zoom and Poker Stars. Figured that would be a nice limit to stream. I noticed that most people entering the community are playing low stakes. So thought of starting with a limit that will be relevant to most people. So we got pocket 8s here in the table 3 betting under the gun player. Aggro head, very likely a reg. My markers are not working for some reason. Euler said, isn't it bad to put music with the copyrights? I mean, I'm not gonna monetize this and this is not gonna be public. This stream is just for the members of the community, so I don't really care if it gets copyrighted. Woo. Got pocket kings in the first table. This guy opened this guy 3 bets to 10 bigs. I called for a bet small. I think that's nice against the sizing. Then the open razor flats. Why can't I mark people? Our friend is saying that he follows my channel. It's a great channel. Thanks, mate. Won't be able to reply right now because some of my... I'm gonna call only because it's you. No way. All right. Now I hit quads. Alright, let's start with a small bag here. 5-5 deuce. The blankest of blankest boards. I could go even smaller than this, I think, against 2 players. Yeah, let's go. Let's go something like this. 15% pot. 2 calls. And a fast call from the 3-better. That's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, I just go for stacks here, right? There's not much to think about. I'm gonna go third pot and then shove river. How do you guys play this hand here? Woo! What's going on? 6 spot if this guy calls, right? Because if this guy calls, he seems to be a regular. He follows my content. Okay, he follows. Okay, kings against queens. We're gonna get this one. Yeah, we get this one. Awesome. Awesome. We have our first question here from Jonathan Doe. Hey Sal, love your content. Thanks, my friend. Do you think you do more ACR playing explain streams? Would be really interesting to see how you exploit the needy player pool there. Probably not. Probably not. I just did that one to test the games there, but didn't seem like it's definitely not a very profitable pool, but also didn't seem like a site that is reliable in terms of offering lots of games in most part of the day. I logged in a couple times and the games were dead, so I just took my money off there. I like to play in PokerStars, and then sometimes I play in GG Poker because the lack of games elsewhere. So I'll probably be doing content on those two sites. And I mean, in terms of exploiting a needy player pool, no big secret, right? Just be really aggressive. I would say start your exploits from pre-flop. Gonna do... I could even be bet bigger than block bet here because... Yes, he's gonna have some queens here, but he's also gonna have plenty of 6s, 5s, and worse jacks. So I think I can even size up with my jack there. So yeah, in terms of exploiting a needy player pool, just be really aggressive pre-flop, and then be really aggressive post-flop, particularly on discontinued aggression lines. You guys have seen me talking about these types of lines in my videos. Lines where people check the middle of the hand are gonna have very air-heavy type ranges. So yeah, no real big secret there playing against needy pool. And of course, try to fold a lot on rivers. Don't be that guy that gets curious against river bets, you know. So our friend Neto here bets medium on the flop, checks back on the pair turn. We're gonna overbet here with our trips. He folds. Cataneda asks, what do you think about playing Zoom games versus playing normal tables? I've played most of my career at Zoom, and in the beginning it was tough. I struggled a lot, particularly at 50 NL. 50 NL was the limit that I struggled the most. From like 2 NL to 25 NL was kind of smooth sailing, except for 16 NL on PokerStars. For some reason, I could never beat that stake. But, you know, the toughest limit for me was 50 NL. And then after I cracked 50 NL, then I made a lot of money at 200 Zoom and 500 Zoom. So for me, Zoom has always been great. I always play a lot of volume with a very decent win rate, 5 BB plus. So to me, it was great. But I don't recommend to anyone because the chance that you're gonna get that kind of win rate in those games is quite low. I've seen that, you know, from experience with my stable. I've had very few players, very few students that were able to achieve high win rates in Zoom games. So I don't recommend it unless you're like top 5% of the pool. If you're top 5% of the pool, then Zoom's gonna be great for you. If you're not top 5% of the pool, then you're better off playing regular tables. Fair enough. I mostly play on it to try to get better since it's very reg heavy. Been trying to follow your red line exploits and research MDA. Awesome, man. But I mean, I don't think you need to like. It's kind of like doing it the hard way, you know. You can improve while having a fish at your table. Those things are not mutually exclusive. You can still play a lot against frags, you know. You have You have a fish at your table, but you have 4 other rags, right? So you're still going to be playing a lot against rags, so I wouldn't play in a rag-infested environment for the sake of improving. I think you can do both. You can improve and make money at the same time, you know? So here we 3-back calls. We're going to go medium size on these low textures. I like medium size here. Something between half pot and 2/3 pot I think is fine. I like half pot more than any other sizing because half pot still forces some non-intuitive and difficult check raises on the other position response. If you guys look at solvers, you're gonna see solver check raising stuff like pocket 7s, pocket 8s sometimes against half pot bets. Maybe not as weak as 7s and 8s, but you're gonna see some pocket pairs being forced to raise, and it's so difficult to do that. So most of your range over realizes equity. If you bet like 3/4 pot, it still achieves similar result, but I prefer half pot. On the turn, I believe we should mix with this hand. And I think I can back call if he jams, right? Yeah. I think bet or check are fine here. Pode ser repetir a resposta para as mesas Zoom. So, Jorge is asking again about the Zoom thing. Basicamente, Jorge, eu disse que Zoom é bom pro topo do field, né? Se você é topo 5% do field, Zoom é bom. Se você não é topo 5% do field, Zoom não é muito bom. Então, acho que dá pra balizar por isso. Been playing WPT Global, it's very, very soft. Yeah, WPT is really nice. Although they have a table limit, right? He tanked for a long time before jamming. That's very interesting. What does that make his range? So he tank jams. Tank jams. 2-1. Yeah, I think it's a call. Yeah. 2-1. This is definitely a call. Yeah, so WPT, I think the thing there is that I've heard from my students at least, I haven't personally had that experience, but some tables started disappearing for them after some time. And they were unable to join some tables with fishes, so it seems like they do some kind of control on winning players. I'm not sure. I can't say that for sure, but it is the experience that some of my players have told me. And I think until now they don't have hand histories, right? They don't have hand histories, they don't track hand histories, which is pretty bad in my opinion. Yeah, but the table limit also part of what keeps it soft in a way. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was the same with Bodog for a long time. Bodog with the table cap. The zone games on Bodog with only with a table cap of 2 entries, you know, you can only have 2 entries there. This obviously makes the game a little bit better compared to a Zoom game where regulars can go 4 entries, right? Yeah, they limit tables with their whole AI thing. Essentially, can't have more than 2 crushing rates per table if called correctly. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a good additional site. Probably shouldn't be your main site, I guess. But definitely works as a very good additional site. The music's tempting me to open a beer. Also nice sunny winter afternoon. Go for it, my friend. We're here to chill a little bit. $887 Rainbow. I guess it's small size, high frequency. Maybe not as high as I think it is. Maybe Big Blind has a lot of 8x. I guess it's supposed to call pre with some 8-7 off against min raise. But I'm still gonna play high frequency, small size anyway. Check raises. All of my ranges kind of have something here, right? 2 overs with backdoors. So maybe I shouldn't call this all the time. Not sure what's the threshold here for calling. Maybe this type of hand is already a mixed strategy on the flop. He polarized the turn, which I think is good here on the king. Should play low frequency with a big size. I'm gonna call and reevaluate river. I think people overall struggle to bluff these pair textures, so I'm gonna be overfolding on the river against the sequence here. 9 is pretty bad. Completes 6-5, completes Jack 10. 9-6 and 9-10 now have a pair. So yeah, this is one of the worst river right now is here to bluff catch, I think. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to, I'm going to bluff raise because I have the king and the 10 blocker. I block 10-6, I block Jack 10, I block... You don't block King 8 because it's not going to have King 8 offsuit. So guys, don't do that, okay? I talk about this in my low stakes blueprint course. Like, you guys burn so much money for trying to be fancying those spots. I'm gonna use my blockers to bluff this guy, and then the guy doesn't have many bluffs. He snaps you off, and you feel stupid, right? So don't do that kind of thing. How safe is São Paulo? My sister's doing an internship in the hospital of São Paulo from September to October. I'm a bit worried, to be honest. Definitely not one of the safest places in the world, that's for sure. I guess the fame it has is probably worse than it actually is. Very likely. So it's not great, but it's not like it's not like people are getting murdered, you know, every corner. So yeah, it's not good, but it's not terrible either. For people looking to improve their game, what are the top 3 things that someone can do? Kind of broad question, right? But if you want to improve your game, you have to study, right? That's the only way. Well, actually, there is another way that a lot of people talk about, which is just playing. I personally have a very contrarian point of view in that regard. A lot of people, I would say most people, have the opinion that, you know, you can improve a lot by just playing, and a lot of people actually recommend you to mostly play when you're beginning, when you're at low stakes. To be honest, that's not what I personally advise. I would say that you should probably focus more on studying in the beginning. So yeah, I don't recommend like high volume when you're inexperienced. And in terms of studying nowadays, you know, it's all about the solvers, right? Not that you should try and mimic the solvers in every situation, but solvers are a great way to study poker. You know, you can get an idea of what a solid strategy looks like, and you can also get an idea of what you can do to exploit people that are not playing like that. So basically, it's work with solvers, build heuristics, learn how to play the most common spots, have very solid execution on the most common spots, and then start understanding how that equilibrium is sensitive to slight deviations, right? If people deviate in this way, what is it that I could be doing to make more money? That's about it. So kind of a broad answer to a broad question. Not having a history is a shame, absolutely. People talking about São Paulo. Don't you use HUD? Sometimes I use it, sometimes not. if I'm gonna in streams, I mostly don't use it. I think it's just more distraction. Like I'm talking to you guys, I'm listening to music, I'm playing. It's just there's not gonna be any useful thing I can do with the HUD. But yeah, I use it. I use it a lot of times. Playing pocket queens here. Code for a bet spot. The guy opens, got 3 bets. I'm gonna code for a bet here. I think sizing should be relatively small. He shoves, we call. It's a flip. And he's probably gonna take this one. Under bluff to the line. It's like any other bird. See, my lunch is over. Is the stream viewable after it's finished? It's gonna get saved on YouTube, and then my thinking is that I'll be doing these streams every week, and then I'm gonna make them available to people who subscribe to a premium membership in the community. I think that's probably the model I'm gonna go for. So I'm gonna be doing these every week for free for members of the community. And then the people who want to watch the live streams, the people who want to watch the recordings will have to subscribe to a premium membership. Seems like a good model to me. What is the ETA for the release of the Timing Tales course, and what will be the price? Probably should be done in about 4 weeks, I would say. Maybe a bit more. To be safe, probably something like... Yeah, I'm gonna call this an overbluff the fish here on the river. Yeah, I'm gonna do something to advance here. Guys, don't try this at home, okay? But I'm gonna do this here. Yeah, so probably about... To be safe, let's put it 7 weeks, okay? 7 weeks to be very safe for the Timing Tales course. So you have to record some videos, you have to do some editing. So yeah, probably about 7 weeks it will be done. I'm not gonna talk about the price yet, because if I talk about the price now, the focus is on the price, right? I want the focus to be on the value that this course can bring to you guys. So we'll be able to see the price once the offer is out there. My goal is always to provide something, and I think that should be the goal of every entrepreneur, right? To provide something that the value you get once you buy it has to be much bigger than the price you paid for it. Like, that's the only way that it makes sense. The only way that it makes sense for me and for you is that the value for me once you buy it is worth for me to produce it, and the value once you get it has to be higher than the price you paid for it, because then what's the point if it's not like that, right? So with me, you can always be safe that the value you're gonna get with what you're paying is higher than what you paid for it, right? And if you think it's not, then you're gonna be able to get a refund. That's my philosophy as an entrepreneur, and you never have to worry about not getting value out of something I produced. If you genuinely believe that you didn't get value from something you paid for, or that what you paid for is higher than the value that you got, then you're gonna have the option to, one way or the other, you're gonna have the option to get your money back. Decided to check here. I could also bet. I'm not sure here. I think I have a lot of these overcard type hands, and I don't have to bet all of them. But in terms of an exploitative strategy, betting is probably better than checking. It's very likely people are not going to check raise enough here on these kinds of boards. But anyways, I'm actually not going to bluff this. I know this guy's Brazilian, and he probably perceives me as very aggressive. Basically, he gets here with a lot of ace highs and some weak pairs. So he's probably going to be overcalling here, and for that reason, I'm going to give up. Wow, Lots of questions. Okay. I've been playing more than study for sure since switching over spins. Kind of have to break what I'm used to doing from spin, and just studying doesn't seem to work out well for that. I'm gonna mix this 3-bet and call. Let me see if I get your question. I've been playing more than studying for sure since switching over from spins. Kinda have to break what I'm used to doing from spins, and just studying doesn't seem to work out well for that. Yeah, I think you shouldn't do like just one thing, right? You shouldn't just all study or all grind. You have to be a mix of it. But yeah, if you switch from another game type, I would say studying is probably more beneficial. I believe you previously mentioned you struggled with overcalling rivers coming up, like you just mentioned about not being a hero when a spot's under bluffed. What is some advice for improving this? Oh man, what is some advice for improving this? I don't know, what's your level of desperation? You know, at some point, you're gonna be so desperate that you're just gonna do it, you know? This is an exploitative strategy here I'm doing at this table. This is not a thing at Equilibrium 2. Reopen for a small size, but since people don't punish enough with check raises, you can get away with that kind of thing. So yeah, in my case, I was so desperate for results, I was actually telling someone in the chat about how I felt like I was maybe stupid for struggling for so long, you know? So I was so desperate that I just decided, fuck this, I'm gonna stop with this shit, you know? So, depends on your level of desperation. I guess at some point you need to understand fundamentally that bluff catching on the river against other regulars is not where the money is. So once you understand that fundamentally, you drop that inner fear. It's almost like we have that fear of missing something, you know? Oh, if I fold this, either I'm gonna get exploited or I'm gonna be passing on some potential EV. We always have that fear of missing something when folding. So once you understand fundamentally that that's not where your money is gonna come from, you're just kind of like, okay, I have to have a real good reason to do this. So, you know, of course, this is like a rationalization, and you have to overcome the emotional impulse. Once you can overcome the emotional impulse, it just comes down to that fundamental realization. How do you identify overbluffed and underbluffed spots? Studying with data, basically. But the data reveals a very common pattern where spots where the ranges are widest have more bluffs, and lines where people check the middle of the hand have more bluffs than lines where people didn't check the middle of the hand. So that's a very safe. Those are two very safe heuristics you can use for determining underbluffed or overbluffed lines. Spots where ranges are pretty wide are very likely overbluffed. Spots where the ranges are pretty tight are very likely underbluffed. And lines where people check the middle of the hand are more likely, doesn't mean that it's always overbluffed, but it's more likely that it is overbluffed than a line that people did not check the middle of the hand. So those are two very safe heuristics you can use almost always. How hard you'd think would be to MTT rag make the transition to cash? It's as hard as how much you're willing to put the effort, right? That's always going to be my answer to these types of questions, because like it's doable. It's just a matter of how much effort you're willing to put into it, you know? I mean, in terms of a technical disparity between MTT rags and cash rags, no offense, but I have to say MTT rags are way behind. Like, way behind. Sometimes we see MTT rags talking about post-flop strategy and we're like, what? What is this guy talking about? Like, doesn't make any sense, but we understand why that's the case. It's just that you guys don't spend all that much time, you know, figuring everything about theory like we do and obsessing about theory stuff. You guys also have a much more complex game to deal with, so many different scenarios, and then you have ICM, and then you have like, you know, it's a completely different game. So I would say that the technical disparity is big, but nothing that some study can't help, right? So you just gotta sit in your chair and put in the effort to get better. That's it. Are they always going to be live on Tuesday? I don't know, not sure yet on the exact. I didn't fix the date and time yet. I'm probably gonna do them on Mondays if I had to be honest, because it's the day I usually separate to produce free content, to make my YouTube videos and everything like that. So it will probably be on Mondays going forward, but I will let everyone know once I decide. H10 suited here. We have an interesting spot because the open razor. Yeah, I was actually imagining this was going to happen. So this is a very interesting spot because in one hand you want to code 4-bet to play heads up, in the other hand you want to play against a fish, right? So I think a lot of people leave money at the table by just isolating every time and try to play against a reg, right? Sometimes you have something that goes like this: the fish limps, then the reg isos, and then guys on the blinds, they want to 3-bet and just play heads up. Like, why would you want to play against a reg? Like, try to play against a fish, you know? So that's why I decided to call here. And now I'm just gonna fold post flop. On the bottom here, I have this Queen 8 suited that I check back the flop. Really bad texture for hijack open razors. 6-5-3. The guy's gonna have 2 pairs, straights, pair plus draw type hands. But I'm really tempted to raise this. I'm just not gonna raise this because my blockers are terrible. If I had some kind of better blockers, I would raise. You guys saw me raise that King 7 a few minutes ago. I really like to go for those river raise lines, but don't try to replicate this. You guys are gonna mess it up. It's just very specific. There are some very specific details you have to nail down to pull this off, so don't try to replicate these raises, okay? Yeah, someone actually just asked about that hand. Could you please explain your logic for the King 7 river bluff raise? Well, the simplest way I can answer you is that people fold enough to make it profitable. Now, in what conditions they fold enough to make it profitable, and how you should decide whether it's going to be profitable for your hand or not, is very, 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 very detailed, and I'm not going to be able to answer all of that in a live stream. But the gist of it is that on the aggregate, people fold enough to make it profitable. Okay, do you think that the course will be valuable for a 500 1K player? This is for Alex, so I believe, yeah, he's talking about the timing tells course. I think it's the most valuable to people playing higher stakes. Of course, people playing low stakes will also be getting extremely high value from it, but the higher you play, the more money you're gonna make with those exploits. So let's say you're gonna pay me $3,000 for this course. This is not the price of the course, but let's say it was. If you pay me $3,000 for the course and you play 500 on 1K, all you would have to do is make 3 buy-ins worth of exploits to pay the course, right? That's so fucking easy for you to do. If there's anything valuable in the course, like in 2 weeks, you get back your investment, right? It's so sick. So in a way, a better pricing model would be to price it proportionally to the guy's level and stake level, but I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, absolutely, the highest value is gonna be for the guys that have the money to pay, because with 2 weeks of implementing this stuff, you get back your investment. You know, it's just like that. Hey Saulo, I'm a metagame player and I'm currently taking some shots at 200 now. What would you say is the biggest adjustment I need to make from 100 now to 200 now, and from 200 to 500? Yeah, not really a big jump you need to be concerned with from 100 to 200. historically, I have never seen anyone that had troubles moving up. Well, I guess there's one Brazilian guy that struggled. Famous Brazilian guy, you probably know him, Claudio Davino is the only guy I can think of the back of my mind that struggled a little bit with the move up from 100 to 200, but eventually he played 200 and crushed it as well. So the move from 100 to 200 is not really very difficult. Most people can make that move without much trouble. But then the move from 200 to 500, that one can be a little bit hard for a lot of people. I would say primarily because of the difference in money, right? Ace 9, I'm not sure if it's a 3-bet from these positions. I'm gonna call. So, like, at 500 NL, it's totally normal to have 10K swings every now and then, right? $10,000 swings, 20 buy-ins, you know? And then that's 50 buy-ins of 200 NL. So, a lot of people struggle with that move up because the money becomes quite significant, right? So, I'd say from 200 to 500 is probably a difficult move up. 500 to 1K is also a difficult move up for a lot of people. Here I'm going to... I think all sides are viable here. You can have a block bet, you can have overbet. A half pot to accommodate your King X hands. Seems fine to me. Table 1, I 3-bet, get calls. Bet small on this king high disconnected board. I'm gonna check back this turn, although double barreling strategy on king high boards and 3-bet pots is not as polarized as people play it. You can have some bets sometimes with these under pairs. Now he bets 62% pot on the river. The hand feels like a raise or a mixed strategy in theory, but I think in practice we should probably just call this. I don't think I can get called by much worse when I raise. And he was bluffing the pocket threes. Yeah, so back to the Gabriel's question. I would say you have to try and become more aware of how people could potentially be exploiting you, because you're gonna have from 200 to 500, that is from 200 to 500, like a lot of times you have some very long time grinders playing 500 now, right? You can have people that have been playing for 10 years playing 500 now, and then if you're inexperienced, if you have been playing professionally for like 1, 2, 3 years, these guys are gonna have a huge edge on you. Not because like they're super crushers, because they understand everything about solvers and anything. It's just they have way more experience than you. Like the guy has been playing for 10 years, you know. He's gonna know more about poker than you. He's going to know more about how most people play than you. So you just have to become more solid and become more aware of ways that people could potentially be exploiting you. I think that's probably the best advice I could give you. Look out for the weakest spots in your game and try to get rid of those as soon as possible. So tempting to raise this, but I'm not gonna do this. Multi-way pots. Again, don't try to be a hero against multiple players. Just play face up, that's fine. Now here, this is something that people were talking about in the chat earlier today. Ace King Forward is a texture that you should play big bet or check if you're playing according to solver. I played 1.2x, but I would imagine solver bets even bigger than this if we allow it to. But let's say you want to play range bet for a small size. Can you do it? Absolutely. I've played like that for many years and I crushed. Like, it's not like your flop bet sizing is going to dictate your edge over the field, you know? So a lot of times I see people obsessing about things that are not necessarily the most important. But as I said also in the chat, I like to go for the solver approved sizing. I like the challenge of playing close to solver. Sometimes we struggle because we see a lot of videos but don't listen the thing, like what you said. Bluff catch, rags, and rivers not where the money is. That and a lot of other things. When we listen, make differences, not only watch and copy-paste strategies. Yeah, absolutely. What you're talking about is the difference between watching a free video and watching a paid course, or watching a free video and getting private coaching, you know. With a free video, the information is not necessarily organized in a way that and also your experience of watching it is not necessarily in a way that you're gonna see that and boom, you're going to figure it out, you know. Perhaps you're gonna listen to it and it's going to enter here and come out here, you know. It's like you can definitely learn from it, but sometimes you're not gonna absorb as much of the content. Knowing cash for sure will make you better at early stage MTT as well, for sure. Isn't a general rule of thumb that the softer the field is, the less technical the rags in that field are? I would imagine that's the case, yeah, absolutely. King 10 here, I'm gonna play 3/4 or check. I like my combo here for betting. King of Diamonds is really nice. He shouldn't really fold too many hands that have the King of Diamonds on them. So it's a really great hand to bet on the flop. I opened 3x at live 25510. Due to the nature of live games, I get a lot of callers and rarely get 3-bet. I've been thinking that I should start a size up to 4x. What do you think? The fact that people don't fold pre-flop definitely reduces the EV of opening with the bottom hands in your range, right? This is something really crucial that also people don't pay attention much. Like, most people just care about studying strategies, but they don't try to understand the EV of their hands. Like, how many of you, when was the last time that you browsed GTO Wizard looking at EV view and take a look at the EV of each hand instead of just strategy, right? Most people don't do that. So when you open pre-flop, especially from earlier positions, you really want people to fold, right? You really want people to fold, and most of the money you're gonna make are gonna come from getting folds. And then getting 3-bet is awful. So I'm gonna fold this King 7 here. I think you can jam. the chat tell is really strong. I think when people go into the chat, the chances of them bluffing decrease significantly. So, like, the fact that people are not 3-betting enough is good for the VFR opens, but the fact that they're not folding enough is also is bad for the VFR opens. At the end of the day, I would say if you're getting lots of calls, like multiple callers, then yeah, you should probably drop some of your opens, and then yeah, I would say increasing the size of some of your opens should be fine as well. Pretty tempting to raise this hand. I'm gonna do it. It's so tempting. I can't help myself. It should be a mixed strategy, so it's fine. That was an excellent idea. We pay the course the limit we play. Also, I think people struggle more from 200 for 100 because they're mental game. Technically, if you're crushing 100, shouldn't be a problem to beat 500. No, that's not what I said. The technical difference between a 100 note reg and a 500 note reg should be pretty decent. But let's say you get a table, like this is something else that people don't understand. If you get a table with a whale at 500 now, and you get a good position on that fish, even if you're worse than the other regs, you're gonna make money at that table, you know? So it's possible to be really bad relative to other regs, but still make money at the table if you have a fish donating. So a lot of people don't understand anything about game selection and don't understand this, but it is the truth. You could be the worst rag at the table, but it could still make money if you have a whale donating money and you have good position on the whale. But yeah, I would say a very significant struggle that people moving up from 200 to 500 have is the mental game for sure. Something that's very common as well is to put people on a pedestal and think that the rags at the next limit are so much better that they have to change their game in a ridiculous way. So a lot of people do this, like they move up in stakes and they're like, they completely change their game because they think now everyone is solid and everyone is bluffing them and everyone is calling their bluffs, and then they get completely overwhelmed. They don't know anymore what is it that they do that works, what is it that they do that doesn't work. So this is also a mental game leak, right? What is this guy doing here? The guy just straight up jams. It was a snap jam. Yeah, I'm gonna fold. Yeah, so for sure a lot of mental game leaks when moving up from any stake to the other, but I would say 200 to 500 and let's say 1k to 5k is also pretty tough. 1k to 5k is also pretty tough. I'm gonna play exploit here on this low board. I could better check this hand. I'm gonna go for the check raise here. I really like check raising. Yeah, I was kind of hoping he was gonna bet small. When he bets medium, I'm gonna go for the check call instead. I was gonna raise against a third pot bet, but when he goes for the half pot, I'm gonna go for the call instead. I think when he goes for the half pot, the hands that I want him to bet fold with are not too present anymore in his range. So hands like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, 8-7 type hands, they could still be in there sometimes, but I think the chance is very reduced. If you're crushing 100 now like 7BB plus, you'll probably do well at 500 now, but in my experience the rags are much better at 500. Yeah, rags are much better at 500, that's for sure. That's for sure. My last question regarding timing tail course. I work with data a lot, so would prefer the course be based on real world data, which may be challenging to obtain. Is the course data driven? Yes, it is data driven. But it is data driven from a training environment. Some people have issues with that, so I have to be completely transparent. I don't have data on timings from actual real money games because as far as I understand, that would be forbidden in any poker software. So unless you want to break the terms of service and run that risk of getting caught, you can't do that. So what I did was I built a very similar to grinding training environment, and I put my students to play in that training environment, and I tracked all their timings. And then they played like 700,000 hands in that training environment, and I tracked all the timings of all of their actions. I use that as a proxy for real timings in real tables because I think the experience is really close. Of course, there are some differences, particularly the fact that they're not playing for real money. But I think for most of the circumstances, it should be very relatable. And I have been using the results of that work, of that data ever since. Great playlist. Thanks, buddy. Best strategy. Bet the strategy viewer CV view chat. Hi, boss. Could you tell us more about your most common exploits against rags? I mean, nothing more than what I've said hundreds of times in my videos, right? The most effective exploits against rags are in lines where people construct their ranges really poorly, and that's typically when they checked in the middle of the hand somewhere. So for example, when a reg goes, he checks twice until, let's say you're button in his big blind. You're button his big blind, you check back the flop, he checks, you check back the turn. I'm sorry, you check back the flop, he checks the turn to you, and then you get to the river. That's a spot where regs are insanely exploitable. If they bet is super overbluffed, if they check is super overfolded. That's because the way regulars play, in almost every line, they're putting less air than they should in the betting range, and they're putting less slow plays than they should in the checking range. So that makes, as the more regs check, the weaker the range progressively gets. And it should get progressively weaker, but not as weak as people construct their ranges. So you can just attack those spots where people are constructing their range in a very, very poor way. Is GG good to play as min sight in 15L fast fold? I wouldn't play GG Russian cash. I think if you're playing 15L, there are better options out there. Probably Poker Stars 15L that I'm playing right now is probably better than GG Russian cash. You have fish, you have games every day as far as I can tell. And you also have, I'm gonna go small here. It's tempting to size up, but I think as a one size strategy, probably small is still better here. So it's, yeah, I think Poker Stars, if you have it that available, Bowdog Ignition should be decent for that limit. I think 888 Poker is a really good site if you have that option. If you have no other option, then yeah, just go for it. But if you're playing 15L, I would say you can probably play a lot of sites before you play GG Poker. The rake is insane, and that really eats up your win rate, right? At what stake do you recommend starting to use solvers to study? Any stake. Any stake. I started with solvers at 25 NL. And if I could have started sooner, I would have started sooner. Never too early to do the right thing, right? Of course, in the beginning you're gonna struggle a little bit. You're not gonna understand anything that's going on. But you have to start somewhere, right? You have to start somewhere. You have to get familiar with the software and everything. So I'd say as early as possible. Is it possible to obtain from mining providers for money without violating TOS? I didn't know that. I didn't know that those providers sold timing tell data. You're the first one to tell me that. Saulo, in which language did you build that training environment? Have you ever programmed, or did you assign someone to do it? No, I did myself. It was C#. I did it in C#. It was how's it called? It was a WinForms application. I don't think anyone does that for commercial purposes, but it was the easiest way I found to do it. So I did C# a WinForms application. Did the students know they were being tracked around their timing tells? If so, did that be Ulysses? No, they didn't know that. What do you think about Spanish poker players? Do you know any Spanish poker school? I know that Spanish poker schools have a really aggressive style. I guess Davy Jones is Spanish. There are some other guys from Spain. I know that Adrian Mateos guy, that is a Entity Rag, is very aggressive. So my perception on it is that they're really aggressive, but I don't know anyone personally. I don't talk strategy with anyone or anything like that. Let's play this Ace 8 offsuit here. The guy went small bet here on this texture. Decided to float with my ace of spades. Now we're going to overbet bluff the river. I think it's a very nice hand to do it with. You can overbet even, let's say the weakest hand I would overbet here. Probably even a hand like King Jack with a spade. I think you can overbet there. I made some big mistakes and big pots. These mistakes cost me a lot. How would you overcome mental leaks when moving up, or when you emotionally invest, or some rags trigger you? Man, let me play this hand first. Whenever people ask me about mental game, the answer I give always is that I've always been very privileged in that regard, in the sense that I basically never had significant mental game problems myself. So I have never had to deal with that myself, you know, so it's really hard for me to give advice or to tell you what you need to do, because I haven't gone through that experience, right? I was never the guy to tilt or to call people because of ego issues. The only real mental game leak that I've had was at 50 NL when I couldn't stop calling rivers in big pots. That was the only thing. So that's the only experience that I have with the significant mental game leak, you know. I would be the guy to convince myself that I had to call off the top of my range in a 4-bet pot against a random reg in a spot where I knew that he didn't have any bluffs, right? In my guts, I knew he didn't have any bluffs, but I couldn't help myself. I made the call just to be shown the nuts and feel really stupid. And the way I cured that was I was just desperate. I needed to make poker work. I had to quit university to play poker. Like, I had everything on the line, so to speak, because I sacrificed something really significant, which was to be part of a very prestigious university to pursue poker. So I was like, I need to make the fucking thing work. And if people are telling me that I should be folding more, let's try that shit. Let's try folding more. So to me, it was relatively easy. So yeah, as far as that, I don't have much to say. The other thing I could say is to go into therapy, get into therapy. Not necessarily like, you don't need to be struggling mentally at poker to get into therapy, but I would say it can also help with that goal. So I think it's a very good thing to do for yourself. I think here's a coherent line to check raise flop and then check sometimes on this turn, really bad turn. And then once he checks back, block bet the river. Once I get raised, I think a very strong player could potentially overbluff this with some hands like ace queen with a spade or pocket aces with a spade. But I think most people are just going to underbluff this, and therefore I'm gonna fold. What limit do you play regularly now, Saulo? Have you played much against Clancy on GG? I don't play much. Basically, whenever I play is to make a video or to do some kind of content. So I play basically like 2 sessions a week. So I want to get back to the grind a little bit. I want to do some challenges. You guys are going to hear about that soon. But grinding hasn't been a priority for me. And I play maybe like 1,000 hands a week, something like that. If I were to play, let's say, I would drop everything that I'm doing to play full-time, I would be playing 1K now. That would be my bread and butter. I think that's where, like if you have a decent-sized bankroll, I think that's probably where you can print the most amount of money with the least amount of variance. And that would be relevant for me. I think maximizing income while trying to minimize variance sounds very appealing to me, so I would be playing 1K NL if I were to drop everything I'm doing and focus on grinding. There are some people printing serious money playing that limit. Probably even making more money than some guys that play 5K and above. About Clancy, no. I have played very little with him. I know he's considered to be really good, particularly his His theory videos are very well liked by the community. I remember from one at once, but I haven't played much with him. Do you have an advice to work with solvers efficiently in order to translate that to the tables? I have a lot of advice on that. That's basically what I do for a living, right? To help people how to get better in poker. Let me play this one. Let's call this one. Pretty bad flop. A la plancha. A la plancha. He checks. I think I should probably bet sometimes, right? I do block some ace-6, ace-5 that he's gonna check fold with. But it doesn't seem like a board where I should have too many pure checks. So yeah, let's go with the assumption that this is a mixed strategy and we can bet it sometimes. He check calls. I'm gonna barrel sometimes here. Yeah, let's barrel sometimes. And I can jam on any fortress straight, diamond. Yeah, I think I'm jamming on fortress straight, diamond. Giving up on pairing rivers. Ace-X and King-X rivers are also pretty bad. Yeah, jamming on fortress straight, diamonds, giving up on high card rivers. Seems like a good strategy here. How long the stream is going to be? I've been going for an hour, and I'm probably going to stop soon. So if you haven't made a question yet, this is the time to do it. Go for it. On the 6, it is a fortress straight, but now I have a pair. He does get hit with some ace, king of diamonds, ace, queen of diamonds, ace, jack of diamonds, maybe king, queen, king, jack of diamonds. But this is probably a better bluff than a hand like... tough spot. Tough spot. Tough spot. Probably a mixed strategy. I'm gonna give up here. Maybe I have some equity. Yeah, king, jack of diamonds. Surprising that he didn't jam that. I kept calling rivers until I showed a crushing 15 reg my river call database. You're just a payoff wizard. This one. Oh fuck. Missed a good hand. Yeah, man. We spew so much money calling people off. It's crazy. Poker is a very unforgiving activity in a sense that, and this is really important that you guys understand, like a small amount of big mistakes can completely kill your efforts in the, like 2%, 1% of big mistakes can completely kill what you're doing in the other 99%, 98% of situations, you know. So poker is really unforgiving in that regard. It doesn't matter if you are, you know, the crusher of single raised pots and 3-bet pots, and if you do everything correctly on flops and turns, but then every now and then you put a stack on the river that you shouldn't. That's what makes poker really, really hard. It's really unforgiving in that regard. Make the call here. And I might call all the way down. Well, now I have a full house. That's kind of a... It's kind of a sick spot because he's never going to want to try and get me off a queen. So it might be a spot where... Yeah, it might be a spot where he goes maximum with his nuts, but never bluffs with that size. Can I make the hero fold here? Can I make the hero fold? Would he ever try to get me off a queen? I'm not gonna make the hero fold. Gonna make the hero fold. This is what I call a negative asymmetry spot there. Maybe if he value bets a queen for that size, it's a punt to fold that. But I wouldn't imagine he does that. Not sure about that one. Which player would you rather coach? A net player who needs to be more aggressive, or vice versa, an aggressive one that needs to calm down certain spots? I would coach both. I have coached both my entire life. Let's say, the aggressive guy that needs to calm down a little, he can probably get more results in the short term, but historically and from experience, it seems it's harder for that profile to overcome its own leaks. The nit, at some point, the nit realizes he can no longer remain as a nit, and then he, you know, if you kick his butt, he's gonna start being more aggressive and he's gonna start playing better. The spewy reg, who can't stop bluffing, calling people down, this guy, you know, it's a little bit harder. I would say it's harder to coach that guy. It's harder. He can get better results in the short term because his aggressive strategy allows him to make money in the short term. But, you know, this is a guy that will struggle more, for example, to make the move from 200 to 500 to 500 to 1K. And then the Nick guy may have it easier, you know. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. Do you use RNG post flop? Yeah, I do. Not using much here for the stream. I guess I am using it sometimes unconsciously, but I'm not talking about the frequencies. But yeah, I use it. I've been a randomizer since 2019 was the first time I moved up to 500 now. Started playing 500 Zoom. And at that time, I was the guy that would put my opponents into a pedestal. So I was like, man, people at 500 Zoom must be so tough. I must start playing closer to theory. What the fuck is this guy doing? And then I started randomizing in 2019 and never stopped since. Of course, I don't randomize every hand, every situation. Everything is dependent on a context. But I think RNG is a really good tool. RNG allows you to play with less pressure, achieve a more solid strategy with less effort. I think it's a great tool if you understand how to use it. But of course, a lot of people don't know what they're doing, and it becomes kind of an excuse to not think through the ranges. But I think if you understand what you're doing and you use it with some kind of coherent plan, it's a very good tool. I don't like having clubs to barrel here, but I have the feeling that this guy's a fish, so yeah, he's definitely a fish. Against a fish, I really like the double barrel line through red pots. That's why I went for it. But checking would be fine as well. Thank you, Saulo. How would you measure performance? Facility is improving or not? Only use the VBB or other metrics too? Man, I don't use win rate metrics to measure short, medium-term performance. Simply because there's a lot of variance in this game, right? So historically, I've used stats and history reviews way more to measure performance rather than results or ring rate, etc. So, like, I can tell, looking at your stats, I can tell whether you're good enough to beat a certain limit, for example. If I take a quick look at your stats, I would be able to tell if you're good enough to beat a certain limit or not. And then even if you're not having good results, I'll be able to say that, no, your strategy is definitely decent enough to beat this limit. Or maybe if you're having good results but your stats look awful, then there's a high chance you're just running good. So I would say stats and then some in-depth look into big pot execution. Like, big pot execution says a lot about your understanding of the game, but also a lot about your mental game, how you handle yourself when you're under pressure, when you're feeling pressured by the size of the pot, you know. So I don't use EV metrics much. Pocket 7s here. I'm gonna call one more. Feels close. I'm probably gonna fold this river. Yeah, I think I have to fold this river. For a long time, I only used RNG pre-flop until I realized my check calling range using a pure strategy was so badly under defend that I had to start. Yeah, I mean, if you only play using pure strategies, your strategy is going to be really, really exploitable, right? There's no way around that. There's no way around that, and that's one of the reasons why most people have insane leaks. You can only achieve a near unexploitable or low exploitability strategy if you play mixed strategies. If you just play pure strategies, you're going to be playing a hugely exploitable strategy. Of course, this is not a huge issue in real games because most people are not really actively trying to exploit you or figure out what you're doing. And even if they were trying to exploit, they wouldn't necessarily know how to. So it's not a huge issue to play only with pure strategies. It's not like you're going to leak a ton of money because the people are exploiting you. No, that's not the thing. It's not a thing. But you know, your strategy is absolutely very exploitable if you don't use mixed strategies. Our friend here snap called against the small bet. This is a timing tower that I consistently exploit. It's a little bit of a spoiler for my course here. There are some exceptions, but a lot of the times you should be toning down your aggression to the next street after getting snap called. It's going to be a region of hands that basically have no air. So there's going to be no air in that range. There's also it's going to be a little bit of a capped range. It's not going to contain the top of the range a lot of times. But just the absence of air makes your fold equity decrease quite a lot in the next street. So it's a good idea to tone down the aggression. So what are the most important stats to look at? One was soul flop, when it showed down, those are the three most important ones. After that, aggression frequencies by street. So aggression frequencies by street are really important. Like, I can have 95% accuracy about your strategy in the entire game tree just by looking at those stats. When was soft flop, when to showdown, when it showdown, and aggression frequency by street. I can know if you're risk averse, if you're speedy reg, if you like to call people down or not, if you invest into negative asymmetry situations, if you're the type of guy to like to run big bluffs or not. Like, I can tell almost everything about your strategy by looking at those 6 stats. So those are 6 stats. One soft flop, when to showdown, one at showdown, and aggression frequency by street, flop, turn, and river. If you understand how to use those 6 stats, you don't need anything else in your HUD. Only if you really want to be fancy and make like very specific exploits against people. You know, oh, I want to exploit this guy's flop strategy because I've seen that he under check raises the flop against c-bet. You're gonna need a ton of sample to do that. But if you want to do that, then yeah, maybe sometimes you can do some type of very, very advanced exploit against a specific guy. But 95% of cases, by just using those 6 stats, you know almost everything about the guy's strategy. Of course, if you if you have the experience of doing hundreds of database reviews and understanding how those stats correlate with strategy, as I have done over the last 6 years. Do you know Spanish player Vicente Delgado? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Played some against him. I also reviewed a lot of his hands in my videos. Very aggressive guy, I would say. You know, every time I see someone that is very aggressive, I prefer them someone that is more passive. So I always give a lot of respect to guys that are very aggressive. In his case, I think he might get a little bit too aggressive in certain spots, in ways that is a bit face up. But he's a very strong player, and for sure he's very winning player. But yeah, he can be a little bit too aggressive, I would say, in some spots. What a good aggression frequency per street. So Solver is gonna have something like 39, 32, 39. Okay, so that's what Solver has in a 6-max game against bots. 39, 32, 39. Nosebleed players are gonna have something like 40, 33, 37, 38. Nosebleed players gonna have something like that. They are a bit more aggressive than Solver on flops. Turn is very close, and then they're a bit more passive than Solver on rivers. So I would say a very good metric to have is something like 40, 34, 40. If you can get to 40, 34, 40, it's very likely you're a very strong player. What are the good ranges of odds for those important stats? The same question. So 40, 34, 40 for aggression frequencies by street. One saw flop 50 to 53. It's pretty good. Nowadays, I remember back in the day, man, how things change. Back in the day, having a 51 saw flop was like, man, you were super aggressive. You were way above field. Nowadays, it's becoming way more common to fight people that have 51 saw flop. And now the most aggressive guys are getting into the 52, 53 kind of values. So 50 to 53 is pretty decent. Went to showdown 29 to 33. If you're below 29, you're just missing bluff catching spots. If you're above 33, you might be bluff catching a bit too much or being too passive with your value bets. So 29 to 33 is really good. And one at showdown 49 to 52. If you're below 49, you're probably over bluffing by a lot, and you might be getting exploited by some of your opponents. But it can still work below than 49. There are some red line guys that have like 46, 47. So it could work if you're really good, but it's tough, it's difficult. And then above 52, you're just not bluff catching enough, not bluffing enough. So 49 to 52. Nowadays, you're almost never going to see a very strong player falling outside of these ranges. Maybe there's a very strong guy that has one at showdown at 54, you know, as an exception. But 99% of the very strong players in a limit holding these days are going to have these stats that I just told you guys. So if you're falling outside, unless you have a game that has some very specific circumstances, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong for sure. Oops, I'm definitely one of the spewy rags. It happens to all of us. I was that guy at some point as well. Man, I checked my 200 Zoom database these days. I think I was making a video or something. No, I was writing a newsletter post. And my triple barrel, my range composition in the triple barrel line, button versus big blind, I think I had 60% bluffs in that line. Just so you guys have an idea, like GTO for a 3/4 size, it would be 29% of bluffs. I was over bluffing by 30%. Oh, those were good times, man. Those were good times. People just didn't care. People just didn't care. They just folded. So sick. All right, my friends, we're getting to the end of it. Hope you guys enjoyed this first stream. Very chill stream. Unfortunately, weren't able to talk too much about the hands I was playing. Sorry about that, but I think it was nice. It was nice to talk to you guys, answer some questions, exchange some ideas. I liked it. Tell me if you guys liked it as well. And I'll try to make different formats every now and then. Do some hand history reviews of you guys' hands. I'm gonna take some hands from the community to review from you guys. And maybe sometimes just do some Q&A sessions, just hop in, answer you guys' questions about anything, try to generate value for you guys, all right? All right, my one-stop flop is only 46, but on the other stats, it's pretty close to what you said. That's interesting. It's not, I would say it's probably impossible to have 40, 34, 40 aggression frequencies with 46 one-stop flop. That's really, really hard. But yeah, try to get that aggression up. All right, my friends, let's see it out next. Big blind. What? He doesn't allow me to do that? What's going on? My software is trolling me. All right. Anyways, that's it, guys. See you next week for the next stream, all right? Bye-bye, folks.